Am I about to leave $50,000 on the table? Did I just make a bad deal? The answer could be yes. A lot of sellers do. They price wrong. They renovate wrong. They negotiate wrong. And by the time they realize it, the papers are signed, the deal is done, and there's no going back. So today what I'm doing is I'm answering the top 10 questions that I get from my seller clients, and I'm going to give you all those answers now. And by the way, question number 4 could save you 5% of your home's value. The conversation always starts with question number 1, what's your home really worth? This is not rocket science, but it should be supported by the data. What do I mean? When you're talking to a realtor about what your property is worth, they should be showing you the backup data to support whatever approximation or range they've given you. You need to make sure that all of the important features of your home are being accounted for in that analysis. What do I mean? Clearly, things like bedrooms and bathrooms are important, but there's other things that are important too. Do you have a finished basement? How many cars can you park in your garage? The difference between a 1 and a 2 car garage could actually be $40,000 or $50,000 depending on the neighborhood. What about the finishes? If your house was built in the 1960s or the 70s, if you've got a fully updated home, clearly that's going to be worth more than a similar house on the street without those updates. So whatever number you're presented with should be backed up by the data. It should say, here's the approximate range you're going to sell, and here's the reason why I think that's the case. If the person you're talking to does not show up with a good amount of paperwork to show you the detail, I would seriously question that number. So the very first thing you want to make sure you're doing is making sure that that home value is accurate. And I'll give you a hint. If you're slightly disappointed when you see the range, it's probably correct. Most of my seller clients go into this conversation with quite an inflated number in their head of what their home is worth. The second question I get most often is, when is the best time to sell my house? Okay, so springtime is probably the best time to sell, but that also means there's going to be a lot of competition in your area for homes because everyone thinks spring is the right time to sell. So if you sell when everyone else is selling, you're going to have more competition. If you sell at a less appealing time of year, like the middle of winter, you're probably not going to have a lot of competition, but you may also not have a lot of buyers. So in short, there is no perfect time to sell. The best thing that you can do for yourself is sell your property when it makes sense for you. If you are selling a property to go and buy another one, whatever potential upside or downside you realize in the sale of your property, the same is going to hold true when you buy a property. So if you're selling to buy, it doesn't matter because you're going to be selling in the same market. The bottom line is the best time to sell is when you want to, when it makes sense for you. The rest of the details, time of year, seasonality, market conditions, those can be managed. Question number 3, this is a big one. I could talk for hours on this, but I will try to spare you. Should I renovate before selling? This is a big one because in almost every conversation I have with home sellers, they think they need to spend a lot more money than they actually do. 2 most common questions I get in this category: should I renovate the kitchen? And even worse, should I finish the basement? Let's just start off with, no, you don't need to renovate to sell. I actually have a whole other video on 10 specific things you can do to get your house ready for sale, and each one would cost you between $50 and $60. These are massive, massive appearance changes to your house that don't have to cost you very much money, but they can net you a lot in the selling process. Bottom line, you do not need to renovate your house to get it sold for the best dollar. And in fact, I recommend that you don't. The next most common question I get is, what does it cost to sell my home? Because, of course, the seller pays the real estate commissions or the brokerage fee. As a seller, that's your biggest expense. With good representation, you're looking at somewhere between 4 and 5% commission. Now, understand that that commission is divided between the person that is selling your house, the listing agent, and the buying agent as well. So whatever that number is, 4.5, 5%, cut it in half. Part of that goes to the agent that puts the sign on the lawn. The other agent brings in the buyer. That's how that buyer's agent is compensated. So depending on the speed of the market, that will determine where you are in the 4 to 5% range. The amount of brokerage commission you're going to pay is somewhere between 4 and 5%, and it's on the final sale price of the property. When I work with sellers, I also include staging, which is highly unusual. There is a significant expense associated with that, but I just don't know how to do a 50% job in selling someone's house. I need to be able to have control over the showing environment, over the experience of the buyer when they come into the house. That's why I include two things. One is a professional cleaning service, which is somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. The same day I come in and I do the staging. All of that's included in the service that I provide. I do that because I think every property can be beautiful. And so all we need to do is find that together. And if we can create that magical showing experience for the buyer, believe me when I tell you, your house is going to sell reasonably quickly and it's going to sell for top dollar. Question number 5 is, what are the tax implications of selling my home? Is the government going to stick their hand in my pocket when I sell my house if I made money? And the answer is, as long as you've lived in that house for 12 months as your primary residence, you will not get taxed on any capital gains. If it is an investment property that you're selling, there probably will be capital gains tax implications. So you should definitely talk to your accountant if that's the case for you. The other thing I want to caution you on is if you've purchased a property that is new construction, whether it's pre-construction or whether it's move-in ready, if you've purchased from a builder, you need to make sure that that's either rented for the first 12 full months or you've lived there for the first 12 full months, because otherwise the government may come back to you and ask for that HST rebate back. So just make sure you're being careful of that. Okay, question number 6, we've touched on a little bit already, and that is, do I need to stage my home? Well, the short answer is it sort of depends on what your house looks like to begin with. If your house already looks lovely, uncluttered, depersonalized, very spacious, if it feels good to the realtor as they walk through your house in that initial meeting and there's really nothing to do, you may not need to stage your house. But in my experience, 99% of the time, that house will need some staging. And that's not a comment on your ability to decorate or how welcoming your house feels or any of that. It's just that someone like me coming in with a fresh pair of eyes is going to see your house the same way a buyer would see your house. So rather than going through a bunch of showings and getting the feedback from the buyer saying, well, it was a bit cluttered in there, or, we saw a lot of family photos or whatever it was, let's get that out of the way from the beginning. So for example, in my case, what I would do is I would walk through the house with you. I would take photos on my iPhone, photos that I can refer to later as I'm creating a list for you. Call it a punch list of all the things I'm going to ask you to do to help us create that canvas for your house. And then once you've done that, you've removed the photos, maybe you've pulled a couple of pieces of furniture out of a room, cleared all the surfaces. I then come in, as I said before, number 1, with my cleaning service, but also number 2, I bring in the staging stuff. And what does that look like? Typically, in my case, it's not furniture. Mostly it's things like bedding, wall hangings, greenery, something that will warm up the environment, but also keep it looking fairly neutral. And the way that I explain this to people is I tell them it should look like a luxury hotel room. It looks beautiful, it's welcoming, but it's not personal. That's just my specific situation. But in general, if you are talking to a realtor and the discussion comes up about staging, I would take that conversation very seriously. As a seller, it's very easy to think, oh, great, another expense that I have to deal with. But if that staging ends up getting you more money and a quicker sale, and by the way, those two things go together. If you sell more quickly, that means you get more money. If you can sell more quickly and for more money, that will absolutely wipe away the cost of any staging expense for you. So my advice is just take that seriously. Question number 7, how long will it take to sell my house? Okay, so that depends on a few things. Obviously, market conditions. How busy is it out there? Are homes selling reasonably quickly, or are they sitting on the market for a long time? That definitely matters. But the two more important ones are pricing and condition of your home. If you've priced the home sharply, that means that a buyer's reaction when they're on realtor.ca is going to be, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Look at this value. So they don't just look at the price or the house. They look at the price and the house together and instantaneously sort of mentally arrive at a number that they feel is correct for that house. If they're home buyers and they've been shopping for a little bit, then they already have an idea of what their money is going to get for them. Your job is to make sure your house falls in that sweet spot between where you've priced it and how it looks. Now, if you're working with the right agent, the way that you've priced it and the way that it looks is going to be amazing, in which case you're going to see the showings and you're going to sell your home reasonably quickly. And when I say reasonably quickly, I mean somewhere between 7 and 14 days, even in a buyer's market. I saw a house around the corner here in Ancaster sell in 9 days. And when it went on the market and I looked at the price and I looked at the photos, I thought, they've priced it really well. It's going to sell quickly. Boom, 9 days sold. We're still in a buyer's market. Most people are surprised when that happens, but I'm not, because there's really just the two most important things going on. What is the price? What is the condition of the home? If you hit the sweet spot with a buyer, you will sell your house quickly. Question number 8, what happens if I get multiple offers? Well, this was a more common question during COVID, but I still get the question. So I wanted to give you an answer. Number 1, it means we really nailed the sweet spot and that buyers find your home incredibly attractive. This is not something to worry about. It's something to celebrate. And here's why. If you have more than one person interested in your home, particularly in the early stages of selling that property, what that means is they believe the home is worth more and they are prepared to pay more. If you can then create a competition from that situation, well, it's just sunshine all day long. It's just green lights as far as the eye can see, and you're all set. From an operational perspective, we would take a look at the offers together. We would look at the price, but we would also look at the terms to make sure the closing date lines up with what you want. The price is good. The conditions are reasonable if they have conditions. And then you make a decision about whether you're prepared to accept the offer, reject it, or counter. Question number 9 is an interesting one. Do I have to disclose problems on my home? For example, if I had a flood in the basement 5 years ago, do I need to tell people about it? And in short, the answer is yes. In the province of Ontario, legally, you do have to disclose any latent defects on your property. What does that mean? It means that you need to disclose problems that cannot be seen with the naked eye. This is stuff that a buyer wouldn't find just by sort of walking around the house and making note. It might be something like a big crack in the foundation, but it's covered up by carpeting in the basement, something like that. Now, of course, it's not just a legal requirement. It's also a good idea. If you disclose these things, you are less likely to open yourself up for lawsuits later. Whatever your situation, make sure that you're talking to me or to your realtor about what the situation was, and we can figure out the right strategy. The only other thing I would say on that is, don't worry. If you've got something going on with your house, we'll figure out a way to strategize so that it has a minimum amount of impact. And my all-time favorite question 10, should I sell this house before I buy a new one? I did a whole video on this one, and it's a longer discussion than we really have time for today. But what I can tell you is there's obviously 2 different ways you can do this. One is I buy a house and then I put my house up for sale. The other is I put my house up for sale. I make sure that that house is sold firm, and then I start looking for a property. It depends on a few things. It depends on the speed of the market. It depends on if you are upsizing or downsizing, or if it's a financially motivated situation and you need to know exactly how much you have before you spend on the next property. Obviously, that will play a role as well. Let's have a conversation. I'll help you figure out what's the best for you. And by the way, there's also nothing wrong with doing both at the same time. You can put your house on the market and start to get a sense of, am I getting the showings? Does the market seem interested? And then you can start sort of shopping tentatively. And you don't have to pull the trigger on a purchase until you're sold firm, but at least you get a sense of what's in the market so you can kind of keep your eye on the properties that are your favorites before you make a final decision. Listen, at the end of the day, selling your home, it's a big deal, and there's a lot of things you want to pay attention to. It's good to get answers to all of these questions and all the other questions you have floating around in your mind right now. What's most important, in my opinion, is partner up with someone that is an expert in this stuff. Find yourself a good realtor, good real estate broker, someone that will help you and guide you as you go through the process. And the other thing I would say is you don't need to wait until you've absolutely 100% decided that you're going to sell before you find that person. It's great to have that relationship early on. They can guide you. They can say, well, now maybe not so good, but if you waited 6 months, at least then you can have a real conversation and have someone who's really got your best interests at heart, giving you the best advice. My goal is always to try to remove as much stress as I can. And the way that I do that is by removing as many unknowns as I can, which is answering these 10 questions and a whole bunch of others until you feel satisfied and you're now in a position where you can make a confident decision for you and your family. Well, that's it for the 10 questions for today. If you found this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.